Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to the 5th round of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship Season 4 held on platform-specific hill circuits. As we see the start for each race, you can see that we're in the sports class for this round, with the GT1 drivers in the Bestia GTS, GT2 drivers in the Alpha, and GT3 drivers in the Ruston. For all the information you need about this championship, check the link in the first line of the description. So as always, we'll start with the PS4 race, which is the one that I'm obviously participating in, so that's the championship that we're focusing on, and I can give my best experiences of how the races went. And we'll see the start of the race for each GT, as always, not only from the outside spectator shot, but then from individual shots from people who've submitted their footage. Now, I just want to point out that during the course of this championship, I'm not always going to have all of the footage that I need. You know, there's going to be some rounds where maybe I don't have any GT1 representation, or I don't have the start of a race from a GT3 vehicle or something like that, depending on, you know, which platforms I'm focusing on. But I just have to sort of take what I can, you know, get the footage from the people who've submitted it and the people who recorded their races, and then try to still tell the story as best I can using the footage that I have available to me. But we got obviously GT1 of driver of Murphos in the top left. We got two GT2 perspectives of AJ Axel and Brady, and then a GT3 perspective from Happy Gista here. This is all obviously real time when it comes to the start of these races, so the GT3s start much later than the GT1s, and the story of the races, the story of how the races were won, we shall see very shortly. But in general, it was at least for the race wins, there wasn't too much going on. I think GT3 was the sort of the most action in that respect, and there were some interesting overtakes for the race win in GT1, but certainly for GT2 there was really nothing going on in the race. The winner was able to get ahead at the start from pole position and just run away with the win. So we'll see how that happened very shortly. But yeah, it was an interesting race going on behind, at least in GT2. I wasn't very confident about this round. I wasn't very happy with, you know, the way that I was driving, my performance in the car on this kind of track. I just couldn't really get into it, and there was certainly a lot of drivers that were getting a lot better lap times than I did, and I was mainly trying to focus on consistency for this round, and it actually worked out quite well, as we'll see as I go throughout the course of my race. But yeah, in terms of, you know, outright pace, I just wasn't there whatsoever in obviously what, as we've seen already, is a very tightly packed GT2 field with people very, very close on performance. So as we finish up the first lap for the GT2 class, and we've seen a lot of action in both of the races. We had quite a few sort of new people driving as well. You know, some people dropping out of the championship midway through, and we got some new people in, things like that. But the story of how GT1 was won, again, Murphos putting in a great performance. As we saw, how he got up into 4th place on the first lap, and then this is how he gets up into 3rd place. Almost gets up in a second, but Oracle just manages to hold this around the outside, and they have a little coming together, but nothing too bad there. Eventually he does get the move done on Oracle coming into the stadium section of the track, getting himself up into 2nd place. Just a few nice little cutbacks and taking advantage of the bumps and doing what he needs to do to get the position, and then he sets about catching up to Mr. Boxman, who is currently in the lead of the race. He does that, and pretty much in the same sort of area, he gets the job done to get up into 1st place as well. So then at that point, obviously just is able to you know, put the lap times down. He's obviously had the lap times to be able to catch up to Mr. Boxman, and then once he's got into the lead, he drives away from him and gets another win to add to his tally. GT2, like I said, was just decided on the start. You know, Amarogko was exemplary in terms of this hill style of circuit, and it shows throughout the course of the championship that he was definitely the best in hilly circuits. It's fair to say. GT2 was just decided here. He had pole position. He got off in the lead, and that was it. He won the race from there with the best lap time. Totally dominant performance. In GT3 it was Dromballs again who got the win here, but it wasn't quite as easy as what we just saw from Amarocco in GT2. He had to, you know, come through the pack, make some overtakes, all that kind of stuff. Got up into the various, you know, one position after another, making the overtakes, putting in the lap times, and ultimately had a very, very good performance to, you know, get it. It's interesting that, you know, he had a nice pace advantage in terms of his lap times, but he still had to make these overtakes, not make mistakes, all this kind of stuff. And him and Horst Demol had a great battle here. This is for the lead of the race, side by side in multiple corners, all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, by the end, Dromballs is the one who comes out on top. But yeah, great battling between the two of those, and in general, a somewhat more interesting race, you could say, for GT3 than it was for the win in either GT2 or, well, I suppose GT1 had some interesting overtakes as well. But GT3 once again proving to, as it does quite often throughout the course of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship, proving to be one of the more exciting championships regardless of platform. But anyway, let's move on to my race. So, like I said, I wasn't altogether too comfortable about my race this round. I wasn't really feeling like I was getting the performance out of the car that other people were doing, and I wasn't being able to achieve the kind of lap times that everybody else was doing. So my focus was on, I was obviously starting quite far back on the grid as well, as you saw. My focus was just to have a consistent race, because as we've seen throughout the course of this championship, small mistakes can lead to big changes in result. So you can be the quickest guy like I was in round 4, but make multiple mistakes, and you end up way down the order. Dr. Pepper's there with quite an interesting flip and accident at that point. He didn't have his best race in this one, but that really didn't help him. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't want to be making mistakes like that. I didn't want to be getting involved in crashes or accidents or anything that was going to, needlessly put me back. And, with round 4 being very much in my mind as well, that was even more, set in stone. So it was not too bad of a start. I managed to gain a few positions from the starting order that I was in, the grid order, and as we come through the first lap, I do gain a few more positions here from people getting involved in accidents with each other. And again, this is the kind of thing that I was just leaving a little bit on the table, just to be able to have a bit in reserve if I needed to, and not be so close to everybody that I end up getting involved in incidents or anything like that. We have a really, really nice train of cars here in GT2. You gotta say, everybody in GT2 throughout the entire course of the season was so close in performance, but this is just one of those moments where we've just got a train of cars all fighting over the same positions. And this moment here was a little bit unfortunate. Ajaxo just gets, we saw from his perspective as well, he gets out of shape over the curb, and I can't really avoid going into the back of him. I wasn't given a penalty for that, but at the time I thought maybe I would have done. But yeah, in the end it wasn't deemed to be my fault there, and I gained 2 more positions here with JB Car Freak taking out Brady there, and he's having to wait for him. So I got up into 3rd place at this point, and 3rd place was certainly a lot better than I would have expected from this race. So to be up into 3rd, I was thinking, okay, well, this is a result, to finish in the top 3, to get a podium position on a race like this, I would have taken before the race started. Such was my lack of confidence, I guess you could say, on coming into this race. I got up into 2nd place through Mike obviously making his pit stop there, but when I make my pit stop, obviously he goes back up into 2nd place, and that's ultimately where he finishes. So Amarocco in 1st, Mike in 2nd. Amarocco got his 1st win of the season with that, and Mike just putting in another good performance, so the reverse of the top 2 from round 4. And I went down into 4th place here, but that was because Ajaxo hadn't taken his first stop at this point. So when Ajaxo comes in for his first stop, I go back up into 3rd place, and we basically have a battle for the rest of the race over 3rd place. So Ajaxo does have the underlying pace over me. He catches up, he's able to catch up, and then we have, you know, quite an interesting battle, some decent overtakes. I'm defending for quite a lot of the time, but in the end this was one of Ajaxo's best rounds, and ultimately he does manage to get 3rd place from me with a, you know, a decent move. And I do, you know, I'm still on the back of him and try to get the place back, and we after he gets that 3rd place, we do continue to battle over it, but in the end he is the one who gets the final podium position by the end of the race and scores his best result of the season with that 3rd place. So for me, it was, you know, to finish in 4th place on the road wasn't too bad, but I also made a mistake in the pit stops. I stopped in the wrong place. We were having a slightly different pit stop procedure for this round to get around the fact that Molotovs will not work on stunt pieces, so car repairs wouldn't be possible. So we had a 10-second wait in the pit stops for this round, and I stopped in the wrong place, which meant that I gained a little bit more time going up the hill when I made my stop and when I started to accelerate again. So I got a penalty for that. It was a deserving penalty, and I finished in 5th place overall. So although I finished 4th on the road, I ended up down in 5th after that penalty. But honestly, that's probably where I would have finished had I stopped in the correct place in the pit lane anyway, because I wouldn't have gained the extra time that I did. So yeah, not the best round from me, and probably my first round where I just wasn't there. I didn't have the pace, and yeah, I put in an okay performance and got some, you know, my consistency allowed me to in the end get points for 5th place, but just from a general performance perspective, I didn't have the best round, and it was kind of a bit of a throwaway round for me, at least. And the championship works out in such a way that you drop your 2 worst scores, so I was obviously hoping that this would be one of those at this point, but yeah, it's only your best 8 rounds that count. That obviously is done to avoid, you know, disconnections ruining the championship, for example, so you can have, say, 2 disconnections and still be able to win the championship. So although the tables that you're seeing now contain all 5 rounds, when we get closer to the end of the championship, I'll explain it a bit more detail, things can, you know, change quite a bit. So yeah, that was the PS4 race. Well done to Merfos, Strombors and Amaralco for getting those wins. Very dominant performances. And now we move on to the Xbox One race. The Xbox One race was kind of a redemption for Xbox Pro. As we saw in the Xbox One coverage of the 4th round, he had a bit of a nightmare because he won the race on the road, but he lost concentration. He started to mess around a lot, and in the end he lost that win that he got on the road through penalties. So, you know, he responded well after that for round 5 by taking advantage of a few accidents on the first lap and then just putting in a really good performance, really quick lap times, and having a great battle over 1st place with Blaze, as we'll see later on when we get to his perspective after we've seen the start of the race from everybody. So in GT2, Equations had a good start here, but ultimately it's Trumpet Master who's just ahead of him there on the perspective, who gets another win. He's been having some great performances in GT2 on Xbox, and that's another win for him. And then in GT3, Despeki Legend actually gets his first win of the season, and we're actually going to see throughout the course of this first lap, if you just keep an eye on the bottom right, how he does that, because he'll be in 1st place by the end of the first lap, and he never lets that go. So we saw at the very end of the GT3 race last week with the round 4, he was so close to winning the race, but Matty H was just ahead of him. We obviously saw that they were separated by less than a second at the line after an hour and a half of racing. That was Matty H's first win. Despeki Legend just missed out, but now it's Despeki Legend's time to get his first win. And again, GT3 class, as always, is just really close, really good, great racing, many different people winning the races, and yeah, a good performance from the Specky Legend throughout the course of this race, not only getting up into first place as we're seeing here, but then throughout the course of the next hour and a half of racing, holding on to it, and not making many mistakes, just driving away from people. Epic Octane came in second place for the GT3 class for Xbox, and I just wanted to mention that because that was his best result of the season, so good result for him. We just see him being overtaken there by Specky Legend, who goes on to win, but yeah, good result for the second place there. And now we're going to move on at this point to check out how Xbox Pro got the lead of the race. So at this point he does get into the lead, as you can see, but Blaze just manages to come out ahead of him. So that was just after the Xbox Pro's first pit stop. Blaze has already made his pit stop. As we saw, Xbox Pro was, you know, relatively far away from the lead, but he put in some great lap times. He had the best lap for this race, and he was able to catch up to Blaze, who so far had won all 4 of the races in the first 4 rounds. Blaze comes back at him and they have a really good battle, you know, they're back and forth, overtaking each other all the time. But ultimately this is where Xbox Pro gets it done, just up the inside, as Blaze probably gets a little bit compromised by the back marker there. And then Xbox Pro is able to drive away from that point on and gets his first win of the season. So, you know, good performance from him, breaking the winning streak of Blaze at that point as well. And yeah, putting in a really good performance to sort of come back from the disappointment that he had in the previous round. In GT2, Edible Hornet and RJ Slow came in second and third places in this race, and that puts them into second and third places for the championship. Trumpet Master's got a good strong hold on that, but it does get quite interesting as we get closer to the end of the championship, so it's something to keep an eye out, especially the Xbox One Teams Championship, but we will get onto that later on in the season. So, now it's time to move on to the PC race. GT1 starts with a Vivo. He starts in third place, when I say that was, and he has a good battle across the first few laps with Doom Penguin, as we'll see. But Avivo again does another great performance and wins this race. He gets into the lead and is able to drive away, but this would be Avivo's final win for this season. So he's had 4 wins out of 5 rounds at this point, Avivo, and at this point that would, well, we didn't know it at the time, but this would be his final win of the season. So then it would become a case of, you know, defending his trying to get some points, trying to put in some good performances and defend that lead that he has in the championship to be able to keep it. We'll see whether he's able to do that during the course of the next few videos. In GT2, Gooey Goose gets his first win of the season, so a really good performance from him. He's been there or thereabouts. He's had second places and things like that during the course of these few rounds, but yeah, he gets his first win of the season, just flies away from everybody, very similar to what Imarogko did on the PS4 side actually. And this also marked the first time that Ordan was beaten on the road for GT2 on PC. He previously had only disconnected from round 2 and then won all of the other races, but this time he finished in third place with Cloud McShort in second. So really interesting battle shaping up for the GT2 championship as well. In GT3 we had a very interesting first lap. We've probably been watching it. It's probably, if you weren't focusing on the GT3 perspectives of Eskuz and Benimi, I would recommend scrolling back and watching that little bit again, because it was an interesting first lap. This is the battle for the lead that we're seeing in GT3. There's kind of like a 4 or 5 car train all battling for the lead here. We're seeing both perspectives. Benimi's obviously won every single round so far for the GT3 class on PC, but this is actually the first one that he doesn't win, and the reason for that is that Eskuz, who is a new driver to the championship for this round, as I said at the very start of the video, we had some newer drivers coming in for round 5. Eskuz was one of those, and he put in a great performance, put the lap times down, got up into first place on the first lap. As we're seeing from his perspective, you'll see the entire thing, how he gets up into first place. Benimi gets involved in an accident as well, which is, you know, not his fault, but it's just one of those things that happens. He does recover to second place, so he has a good recovery drive, but Eskers gets up into the lead and doesn't look back from that point on, wins the race, and is the first person to win a race in GT3 other than Benimi. So yeah, really interesting first lap, I would say, for the GT3 battle, and really good that we got both perspectives of that. In terms of the championships, again, even now, even 5 weeks into the 5 rounds into the championship, it's still a little bit too early to really say what's going to happen. You have some people who've got some really good points, but the nature of it being the best 8 results means that people who've had bad results in the first few rounds could drop those, and they're not coming into account. So still got a long way to go in the championship and in terms of these videos, but I think Benimi in the GT3 championship is probably one of the strongest, alongside Murphos in GT1 on PS4. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. We've still got 5 more rounds to go, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.